A male called our department on Sunday morning on November 20th. He indicated that he had found an individual at 2300 Gregson Lane who was deceased. Our patrol officers then responded out there. After looking at the scene briefly, they contacted our detectives division, and we sent some investigators out there. The individual was identified as Stanley Gene Becker, age 59. He was deceased at the scene. His body was removed and taken to the Montana State Crime Lab for an autopsy.
And where was he found specifically?
He was inside the residence.
What type of residence are we talking about? Like a trailer, big house, cabin?
That I don't know about that. That's he was inside the living area of the residence. I'm not sure whether it's a mobile home or residence. After investigation at the scene, and also after the autopsy was performed at the crime lab, the cause of death, we won't release the cause of death, but the manner of death will be a homicide.
And I guess so. Then our next question is, shot, stabbed.
I won't discuss the mechanism of injury or the cause of death. Simply, the only thing I'll discuss right now is the manner of death as a homicide.
And you said that was 2300 Gregson Lane?
Yes, 2300 Gregson Lane.
Sheriff, was that the man's residence?
Yes, he's the person who lived at that residence, and as far as we know, he lived alone at that location.
And do we have any, obviously it's homicide, how's the criminal investigation going? Do we have a suspect? Are we expecting a charge anytime soon?
Well, that's not something that I'm going to discuss right now. We're not going to name persons of interest or suspects at this point. Right now, officers have just finished at the crime scene, and they've conducted an extensive investigation at the crime scene. As I mentioned, the body was taken for an autopsy, and now we'll begin to interview anybody who may have information about this incident.
Who found the man? Who found Stanley?
An adult male is about all I can release at this point.
So why, why was it 2 days ago? Was there just more investigation?
Well, sometimes when you talk about an investigation, the less information that's out there, the more beneficial that is for our officers who are actually conducting the investigation. So I determined that we would hold off on issuing any press release for a period of time. We also needed to notify the family of the individual and make sure that all the people who needed to be notified were notified.
How long do you think he was deceased there? Was he?
Sometime before our officers arrived there. We don't believe it was that day, but it was sometime prior to Sunday.
What time on Sunday?
The call was dispatched about 9:16 a.m. on Sunday, and our officers were out there the remainder of the day.
Do you think he might have been deceased for like a day, or do you think it could have been a longer?
You know, I don't want to speculate on the length that the person had been deceased. We'll let the crime lab determine that, as well as our detectives. But it wasn't. We don't believe the incident actually occurred on Sunday.
Okay, and what about the the victim himself? Do we know what he did? Was he new to the area? Has he been around a while?
No, I don't have any information on an occupation other than his name, Stanley Gene Becker, and he's 59 years of age.
Have you ever been out that? Have you ever been called to that address, police?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Is the area more of a remote area? Is it
Yeah, it's a pretty remote, rural area. There's not a lot of traffic. It's pretty isolated from the highway. Even though you can get there from the interstate, it's a considerable distance from the highway, and it's pretty isolated.
And I take it because you're not seeking a lot of information about this crime. It seems like you might have something.
Well, we're seeking anybody who has any information about this incident, and they can contact either myself or Detective Sergeant Ray Vaughn at our department at 497-1156, or you can call Crime Stoppers at 782-7336. And anybody who does offer information technically could be eligible to receive a reward.
And right now, nobody in custody, nobody even being held.
Nobody's in custody at this point, no.
And do we think there's more than one person involved?
You know, I can't really comment on a number of suspects. There's a number of interviews that our investigators will be doing over the next several days, and then I'm sure that first batch of interviews will generate another group of interviews to be done. And then we'll have a better idea on the direction the investigation will take.
Was this, remember I talked to you earlier about the, being related to that guy who tried to drive the motorcycle across the lake there, that Blake Becker? Remember?
Yeah,
Do you
I don't,
think he?
I don't have any information.
Okay, I just
that
didn't know.
indicates he's related to that
Okay.
individual.
But he lived alone there, that was his residence.
It is his residence, the victim's residence, and as far as I know, he did live alone at that location.
Can you tell us where in the residence he was found?
No, I don't want to comment on that either. It's inside the residence as opposed to outside on the property, but that's as far as I'll go with that bit of information.
Anything stolen from the place?
Not that we're aware of.
Vehicles, any foreign vehicle?
Not at this point that we're aware of.
Any motivation at this point?
You know, that's something that our investigators will look at over the next day or so, motivation or any motive that anybody would have, as well as we're going to start looking at the victimology of this person and then who he may have been speaking with during the course of his normal days, and then we'll go from there. But those are the things the investigators will be looking at here over the next couple of days.
Did you have to break into the house?
No, we did not.
So the door was unlocked.
As far as I know, yeah, there's no mention of our officers having to break into the residence.
Any fear that this is a random crime and there could be, other folks could be in danger?
You know, we don't know at this point. Can't really comment on that. There's no reason to suspect that there's any danger to the general public at this time, but we don't really know the answer to that for certain.
Was it a pretty straight edge guy, no criminal record?
You know, that I can't comment on. I don't know that we've even gotten to the point where we've looked into his past to that extent.
Anything else you
Anything
guys
else?
got?
Anything else? Everything?
Found them in the morning. And they're all day.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, officers are just leaving the residence right now, and they're within the last hour.
How long do you think how long the investigation will go on?
Well, that's something you can't really speculate on. We've had investigations that end, you know, almost instantaneously when we put information like this out to the media. We've had investigations that lasted 8 years in the case of the Hatfield case, so you really can't tell where we are at this point. But obviously, if there's any additional information that I can release that we think will help generate leads or move this case forward, we'll certainly do that.